just a game, isn't it? Isn't it?
Did anyone actually play with a Ouija board growing up? In horror movies, children or curious adults are often seen playing with Ouija boards. But I, for the life of me, have never encountered this phenomenon growing up. I don't know if it's just an American thing, or maybe I just got unlucky, but films and ghost hunting shows are where they stayed a strange, fascinating concept to me. I never even seen one until my mid-20s when a pal of mine had one in their room, and that's only because they collected a ton of gothic ornamental pieces for their house. I asked around and none of my friends have ever used one, yet they appear in horror films all the time.
How old are you, David?
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
If you don't know, a Ouija is basically a plank of wood with the alphabet, numbers, yes, no, and goodbye on it. You use a planchette with a glass circle in it and lay it on the board, and by placing your hands on this little wooden heart, a ghost will use energy through you to move said planchette so that you can talk to them. You ask a question, it slowly spells out a sentence or answers yes and no, etc.
Simples!
While talking boards have been around for a long time to be used in divination to speak to the dead, the modern Ouija board as we know it was never intended to be a device to talk to spirits. It was patented in 1891 as a parlour game. It was meant to be that you contacted a part of yourself that automatically wrote out stuff, not dead people. It is first and foremost a board game. Hasbro own it, and they took it from the Parker brothers.
Isn't it?
Parker Brothers kind of fun.
It was the most popular board game in early 1972, even more than Monopoly. Then suddenly mediums took it, claimed it as a legit method of contacting spirits, and it went completely out of fashion by the end of the year. Now, we almost universally accept it as an object of the supernatural, when in truth, it's always been presented as a game. And science has shown it's nothing more than ideomotor response that fuels the movement of the planchette. Helen Nosworthy was a acclaimed psychic medium who named the boards Ouija. Apparently, they held a seance where she asked the board to tell her its name, and it spelled out Ouija. Then when prompted, the board explained this meant good luck. So I guess the board is also a sentient being? Who cares? It's all
Bullshit. You're talking bullshit.
If anyone comes to you and says they can speak to ghosts or contact the deads, they're either a magician or they're a con artist.
Can you smell that? What is that? Sheep, is it? It's cows? No, I know what it is. It's bullshit.
Ouija came along and was entirely focused on these wee boards. Out of all the films in this series, this is one of the ones I was dreading revisiting the most. I remember when it came out, once the credits rolled, I walked out of the theatre legit angry after viewing it. It got leathered by critics. Other people I knew who'd seen it all agreed it was awful. Not so good it's bad, just a terrible experience. However, it made bank, and it wasn't during a slow year for horror movies either. It's quite often that horror movies make profit because the budgets are so low anyway. But this is ridiculous money for a movie with a reputation this bad. And that's what piques my interest to revisit it. The film follows a group of friends who used to play with Ouija boards as kids. One of them uses it again when they're grown up and ends up killing herself. Ghostly hijinks ensue, and that's the entire synopsis.
Not a whole lot.
The film's worst crime is how unforgivably dull it is. I'm not exaggerating when I say it's about as much fun as actually watching people sitting around a table staring at a Ouija board for 80 minutes straight. For the entire opening, it's almost impressive how little impact it has on you as a viewer. I think a lot of that has to do with the clinical execution. It's very rudimentary filmmaking with no emphasis on building suspense or an atmosphere. It's just watching things play out at such a medium tempo with no imagination or energy. This is director Stal White's first film in the chair, and it sure feels like it. He doesn't seem to have grasped the fundamentals of horror, just the basics of putting clips together in sequence. Most of the time you're just watching people mope about and be negative, but we barely get to know any of them, so it's not emotionally engaging at all. It also hurts that, like the direction, none of the actors have that much passion in their performances. Even Olivia Cooke, who's usually quite reliable, is so disinterested in her character you can feel it seethe out of the screen. For everyone else, it's like they read their lines just before the take and winged it.
And what is it?
Nothing.
Debbie, tell me.
I just don't want to go out tonight.
No secrets between us, remember?
I'm acting.
You ever feel like even after someone you love has died, there's still a way you can talk to them?
You can't do that. She's gone.
A few days ago, I went to her house to try to talk to her. She didn't even want me to come inside.
She did the same thing with me. I guess I'm just not ready to let her go.
Neither am I.
Man, I haven't seen the death of a close one impact characters with such emotional weight since Joyride 2. The only person who gives it their all is Lin Shaye, and that's because it's goddamn Lin Shaye. But she's only in the movie for a cameo.
Cool, right? Oh.
They go together.
She found it in her house.
Do I like my find? Oh. Yes. Am I cleaning the attic again? No.
The film plods along without any momentum through a surprisingly scarce amount of scary scenes. I'm not kidding, it was like 50 minutes following the opening before the first big set piece of the movie where it truly attempted to have a frightening scene, and the big highlight was that the Ouija board flipped over. Ouija boards, at its basic element, is a scary object that can chill the people playing it. But somehow, they managed to make even a seance scene utterly devoid of tension or intrigue. I struggled to sit through this because, for a large part of the movie, there's just nothing happening. And when stuff does, it's done poorly. There's almost nothing original to be found in the film at all, it's just so derivative. The music, the performances, the cinematography, it's all breathed onto the screen with a pained sigh.
I knew it.
Debbie, if you didn't do this, who did? Did someone hurt you? Did someone...
Who did it? Who hurt you?
Debbie, why won't you answer us?
I was actually surprised it has as high as 5% on Rottentomatoes, receiving 5 positive reviews, of which 4 were top critics. But even reading their recommendations, these are the best they could muster for the flick. Ouija isn't going to redefine the horror genre. In the current economy, Monopoly makes a more appropriate board game upon which to base a horror movie. This breaks no new ground, even if it's the sort of film you can't really take seriously for a second. A bloodless kiddie horror show. These are the good reviews.
That was really bad.
Ouija, in nearly every aspect, is a bad movie, but it's not even memorably bad. It's like a cinematic indifferent shrug. It's just a bland, unambitious shell of a film that commits the biggest sin a movie can do. It's boring.
Oh, Jesus! Oh, God! Oh, Jesus! God! Oh, Mary, Mother of Jesus! Jesus of Nazareth!
The movie made a ton of money, but considering its unoriginality and terrible response, you'd think they would back that return into a fresh new IP. Nope. 2 years later, they decided to make a prequel entitled Ouija Origin of Evil. They got Mike Flanagan, who'd made a respected name for himself by this point in the horror universe, to direct, but it's Ouija 2. Ouija 2! I had no interest regardless of who was directing. I think my heart skipped a beat when I saw the reviews. They were really good.
It's false. It's a fake. It's fiction. This one was invented by a writer.
The filmmakers actually went back and forth on whether this should be tied to the first film at all. Director Mike Flanagan was opposed to the idea, but they decided to make the connection between them subtle to invite a new audience while appeasing fans of the original. The original has fans? Who?
Mary.
We invite you into our circle. Mary Browning, we invite you into our circle. We seek you in love and light.
Dad, don't give this woman our money.
The prequel follows a family who, as you'd expect, play with a Ouija board and conjure a spirit. However, it's not as straightforward as the first. Within minutes, this had my attention. Not only because the family is really believable with strong performances, but because of the unique approach the movie gives them in that they fake seances. As a skeptic, I loved seeing this, because it's true, all seances are bullshit. But almost every horror film wouldn't do this because it's banking on you believing ghosts exist in its world. Here it's a double bluff effect, and once the spirits come into play, it somehow has a greater impact, as these characters you can identify with due to their skepticism are suddenly hit with the reality of them existing just like us the audience. It's a neat little mystery that slowly unravels as we learn more about the ghosts, the risks get higher, secrets are revealed, and the family's relationships are put through conflict. It all moves at an impressively brisk pace too. I've never felt like 90 minutes had passed when watching it.
I'm sorry this happened to you. Come with me. I can help you. Yea, though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil.
I really connected with the characters. Not just through their skepticism, but because they were genuinely likeable and interesting people going through hard times that we can all relate to. The husband has recently died and they're getting used to life without them. We have the mother who's slowly coming to terms with what she's been faking becoming real around her and trying to keep her girl safe. The youngest daughter who believes she's able to speak with her dead father through the spirit, and once possessed, her sister takes over trying to fight them off, becoming the hero of the piece. They're all fully realised and go through their own journeys that make you want to see them beat this thing. And while they may not be troubling the history of cinema as groundbreaking creations, they're well done. It's a complete 180 from the lifeless blank mannequins that plagued the first movie's cast.
I guess I'm just not ready to let her go.
Oh, and in case you're wondering, the connection to the previous film is this. Paulina is Lin Shaye's character from the first movie. That's it. Other than that, this film is basically its own entity. At the end they make a reference to what would eventually lead to Ouija's plot, which I'm sure got all three of its fans to scream from the hype. The visual elements too are so much better. There's a bounty of horrific imagery and creative ghosts throughout this picture. It knows when to jump and when to let a creepy image linger on the screen for just enough that it chills you to the bone before disappearing. It uses this technique a lot now that I'm thinking about it, but always in different ways. The movie has a suitably ghostly tint to everything. It's very drained of colour, with a lot of greys and blues infecting the screen with the time period and the ghostly shenanigans. Overall, it's a substantial improvement over the drab direction of the first movie. Looking and sounding exceptional, and the cast acting circles around the lifeless cadavers of Ouija I.
What do we do?
I don't...
Ouija Origin of Evil is without a doubt the most improved sequel I have ever seen. There's not a single aspect that isn't superior to the first film. I'd recommend you check it out and forget the first one ever existed. It's a great horror flick.